Joe Biden wants some money for Israel, but he's only going to give it if there's money for Ukraine. Take a listen to this.
You know, the assault on Israel echoes nearly 20 months of war, tragedy, and brutality inflicted on the people of Ukraine, people that were very badly hurt.
Crooked Joe went before the American people and said that if you want to support Israel, then you have to give a blank check for the proxy war also in Ukraine, having to do with Russia and Ukraine, which is another one, by the way, it would have never happened if we were president.
Yeah, of course, Donald Trump reacting to that speech as well. Joining me now is Senator Roger Marshall from the state of Kansas. Senator, good to have you with us, sir.
Yeah, Vince, it's great to be with you. You speak about Kansas, you have to talk about Eisenhower and Reagan just for a second. That Eisenhower and Reagan gave us peace through strength, but Joe Biden has given us war through weakness. And I think that's what we're seeing on the world stage right now, that our enemies perceive Joe Biden as weak, as I call him, a gutless wonder. And the consequences of this is Russia's not afraid to invade Ukraine. Iran, Hamas, Iran and all their puppets are very willing to see exactly how far they can go. Iran doesn't think that we have a red line anymore. So we're in tough times right now.
Yes, they're very clearly taking advantage of his weakness. But what do you make of this move to try and link Israel's aid for Israel to Ukraine? So, for instance, if I look at the package that Biden put out this past week, the White House put out, they're asking for $100 billion. 61% of it would go to Ukraine, just 14% to Israel. Why is Joe Biden exploiting Israel's tragedy to smuggle in more money for Ukraine?
Well, that's exactly the question that I have. And even the question I have for some of the Republican leadership is that they're prioritizing Ukraine funding over our own border. But this is what I would say is let's talk about the difference between the situation in Ukraine versus the situation in Israel. Ukraine is a 7-year, maybe it's a 9-year war. We're going to spend $1 trillion over these next 7 years helping Ukraine over a border dispute that's gone on for thousands of years. The war in Israel and Gaza is a war between the Hamas army of terror and the people of Israel. This is a battle for the future of humankind. And that's why we need to separate these. But I think the battle in Israel is absolutely worth the government funding. But I just cannot support the situation in Ukraine right now.
Well, what does it tell you that they have to link these two things together? Clearly, one of them wouldn't be able to pass on their own.
Right. And think about on the House, the Ukraine funding is dead on arrival. So once again, Joe Biden is missing this opportunity of unity, an opportunity to have probably 99 senators vote yes on Israel funding.
Yeah.
But he's going to spoil the pot by throwing in the Ukraine funding. And we know that's dead on arrival on the House, so it's going to delay it. It's going to slow it down. Does this guy not have any common sense at all? And again, I'm going to go back to this border thing. Why are we not paying attention to our own border?
Right.
That's causing us to lose 300 Americans every day from fentanyl poisoning.
So I found it interesting that the $100 billion that Biden is requesting also includes $14 billion for our own southern border. But when you look into the details, it doesn't seem like it's actually for border security. It seems like it's for processing more illegals into the country. What do you make of it?
Vince, you're spot on. That's exactly what it's going to do. It's going to make his asylum process more efficient. I've been to the border 3 times, and the last time I was there, I saw Border Patrol officers having phone calls, texting back and forth with the cartel saying, look, we processed all these people. We're ready for the next batch. Bring them on over. And then they had this app that they can use to help the process. So you're spot on. What this funding is going to do is increase the number of people working on the processing of people that are asking for asylum. We need a policy change.
Yeah,
with a simple movement of policy, we can cut our numbers in half, probably by 80 or 90%. Simple policy changes by upping the ante, what it takes to qualify for asylum. Just go back to remain in Mexico. Let's stop catch and release. Simple policy changes, not more money for people doing the processing.
Sure, yeah, and this is only helping enrich the cartels, too. But, the reality seems to be that if we just secured the border, we could spend a lot less money. Wasn't that right?
Absolutely. So to me, it's a combination. Like most things in life, there's not just a simple solution. Number one is we need to secure the border by building some type of a fence or wall. And then number two is the policy changes. And yes, we need more Border Patrol officers. We need more technology as well. But again, when I on my last trip, the Border Patrol officers were begging for a policy change. Because right now these policies are like a megaphone going out through the airwaves across the world. Think about this. 60,000 people of interest have crossed our border in the last 2 years from the Middle East. These are people from Afghanistan, from Syria, those types of countries. 60,000 plus another 20,000 Chinese nationalists. It's the number one most immediate national security threat facing our nation.
Yeah, I want to get back to that with you in just a moment, because I know you're on the Homeland Security Committee too, and that this is such an important issue. But before I get there, you mentioned that Republican leadership is also working with Biden to get this $100 billion package shoved through the Congress. Here's Mitch McConnell on Face the Nation this week, and here's what he had to say.
There's resistance among some Republicans, including here in the Senate, about bundling things together. Is it possible to pass Ukraine aid if it's not tied to Israel?
I just think that's a mistake. I mean, I know there are some Republicans in the Senate and maybe more in the House that think Ukraine is somehow different. I view it as all interconnected.
He views it as all interconnected. So here you have the Republican leader in the Senate on the same exact page as Joe Biden here for something that all of this deserves an individual vote, Senator.
Well, what I like about Leader McConnell is he allows us each to have our own voice and to be able to respectfully disagree. And I respectfully disagree with the leader on this particular issue. And I've spoken publicly, I've spoken in private with our senators about this, and I stated my case for it.
Right.
I think where he's missing is our base does not think this is the same issue. My base loves Israel. From the time we started going to Sunday school, we were taught in Sunday school and by our parents to support Israel. As opposed to the situation in Ukraine, every day I find out something new about the corruption going on there with our money. They won't give us an inspector general. By the way, thousands of people are dying in Ukraine as well.
Yes.
No one's talking about peace. Why are we spending time talking about what's the peace solution there? Because this is going to be a war of attrition, and even right now, Ukraine is struggling to find people to go die in battle. So why isn't that important to leadership? Let's talk about ending the war in Ukraine. Let's talk about funding Israel, ending Hamas as we know it, eliminating Hamas from the face of the earth, and securing our border. America has enough money to do the right things here.
All right, let's go back to Homeland Security for a moment. You mentioned, of course, as you and I have been discussing, our border's wide open. Have you seen any intel, or do you have any concern about the threats to the United States? We have a lot of pro-Hamas sentiment, it seems, all across the country, including on America's college campuses in some of our biggest cities. Are you concerned about the threats to our homeland?
Absolutely I am. I do believe our open border is the number one most immediate threat to our national security. I mentioned earlier, 60,000 people of interest have been caught and released in this nation that are from the Middle East, from Iran, from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Turkey, those types of countries. And additionally, a huge spike in Chinese nationalists, 20,000 young, healthy adults, Chinese that have been caught and released into this nation right now. So there's 80,000 people, and our own DHS doesn't know where these people are, who they are. So we're trying to get to the bottom of that as well. 150 some known terrorists that are in the country right now. What's DHS doing with these people? I mean, this army, if you take those people together, is probably bigger than the entire Hamas army of terror that attacked Israel recently. So yes, I'm very concerned about what these people can do. And what I'm really concerned about, though, is their threat to cybersecurity and our intellectual property. That these people are ingrained in our top corporations, our top research places, our in universities, and they're stealing our intellectual property. This is death by 1,000 cuts.
It sounds like you have a deep concern about China as a threat, and that maybe Washington's not actually paying close enough attention to that issue.
Exactly. So you think about China, who they really are. They're the biggest long-term threat.
Yeah.
They steal $500 billion of intellectual property from us every year. 90% of the counterfeits that come in this country are made in China. 90% of the fentanyl that comes in this country is made in China as well. So, China's got my attention as well. And again, they're the ones that will end up attacking our cybersecurity. And no one's talking enough about bioterrorism. I'm more concerned about what new virus that they're developing that could destroy our food supply. So those are just, the tip of the iceberg.
Senator Roger Marshall, we started this conversation talking about Joe Biden's weakness and certainly all of the aggression that we've seen the world's authoritarians take during this period. Over the weekend, it seems like a lot more concern about Americans having to defend themselves now in the Middle East. The Biden administration promising that we will respond when we are attacked. You're an Army veteran, sir. How close do you think we are towards getting into some sort of full-blown war with the United States involved?
Gosh, man, my mom is just worried sick. My son is in the Army. He has orders to go overseas as well as an enlisted. Someone from my family has served every generation since the Civil War, has served this country.
Wow.
So I'm always really worried about putting troops in harm's way. Look, I think that there's going to be some type of military response. I don't think it's boots on the ground. I think that our drones and Air Force and Navy, that they'll be able to handle this without boots on the ground. But this is a nuclear powder keg that we're working on right now. Joe Biden has basically enabled Iran to develop nuclear warheads. I think they're just steps away from being able to put their enriched uranium in some type of series and be able to have a nuclear bomb as well. So let's put it this way: it's all on my prayer list, and please, we don't want to lose any American troops in all of this. And again, it's all because of the weakness of Joe Biden. That Joe Biden's weakness has given us war. We have war through Joe Biden's weakness.
Senator Roger Marshall, finally, Iran has been empowered by the Biden administration, it seems, at every turn, whether it's given money or the sanctions are being eased on their ability to export oil. Why is that, in your view? Why is Joe Biden and the people around him so concerned with making life more comfortable for Iran?
Well, Vince, this is something I've contemplated as well. And the only thing I'm coming up with is Joe Biden thinks there's some type of a Nobel Peace Prize if he's able to tame this tiger. But you don't tame a tiger by petting it, right?
Right.
That would be my point as well. But to your point, what he's done to enable Iran, you think about it. He started off. Iran had a ghost fleet of some 20 ships that were delivering oil to China, and now there's over 300 of those ships. Iran is selling $1 billion of oil every week to the Chinese government as well. So Joe Biden certainly has enabled Iran in so many ways.
Yeah, very unfortunately. So, Senator Roger Marshall, really appreciate your time today, sir. Thank you so much.
Vince, thank you. Have a great week.